The sizes of high-ranked dungeons were so great that a single raid team couldn't do everything in one go. That was why the labor was divided. The raid team that cleared the dungeons, the mining team that mined minerals from the dungeon's interior, and finally, the retrieval team tasked with collecting the remains of the fallen monsters. Both the mining and the retrieval team entered the dungeon once all the monsters inside except the boss were eliminated. Jinwoo applied to the mining team. Wait, is this all the so-called equipment there is? With a somewhat unconvinced expression, Jinwoo picked up one of the pickaxes. Even though it was faint, he could sense the flow of magical energy in it. It's got magic energy inside. Modern technology that utilized electricity didn't work inside dungeons. Because of that, the old-fashioned tools like this pickaxe were used instead, with magic energy enhancing their performance. Once he held the pickaxe tightly, he felt certain. It was not for nothing that hunters in the mining team were roundly berated by others as dungeon miners. Jinwoo shifted his gaze over to the gate. A giant hole was silently floating in the air. A gate with a humongous size that no rank C gates could even hope to compare filled up Jinwoo's vision. So, that's the rank A gate. That guy was his sole reason for showing up here today. I want to see high-rank dungeons with my own eyes. Even though all the monsters inside, except the boss, of course, were dead, he still wanted to confirm the interior layout of the rank A dungeon with his own 2 eyes. Well, I'll be entering one sooner or later. Knowledge was indeed power. However, there would always be a limit to learning from books and internet articles. Didn't the newbies of the White Tiger Guild meet with a huge misfortune simply because they had overlooked that crucial fact? If I wasn't there, none of them would have survived. Knowing something and personally experiencing it were 2 different things. When the opportunity arose, Jinwoo readily applied to enter the mining team in order to get used to rank A dungeons. He did feel a slight pang of regret when holding that deeply uncool pickaxe, but when staring at that massive, fearsome gate, such misgivings flew out of his mind. Looks like I've made the right choice. He still had some time left to kill until the reassignment test, so what a good opportunity this was. Knock, knock. Here are the requested files, sir. As soon as opening the file Wu Jinqiao handed over, a familiar youth's face could be seen. It was none other than Xiang Jinwoo. The Jinwoo in the identity photo looked immature and the atmosphere exuded seemed quite different compared to now. But it wasn't enough to make it impossible to recognize him. Reading the youth's prior records, Go Gun Hui gradually became serious. 4 years of hunter activity as a rank E. Not only that, the lowest grade there is. This was no different than him trying to kill himself. Jinwoo had spent as much time in the hospital as he was active as a hunter. Even with all these frequent injuries, he still managed to tough it out. Apparently, he couldn't quit the association because of his mother's hospital fees. A rare type of youth in this age, indeed. An unreadable light flickered in Go Gun Hui's eyes. In place of his missing father, he has been looking after his sick mother and a younger sister who is still a student, all by himself. After learning that Xiang Jinwoo was a reawakened, Go Gun Hui decided to take a peek at the youth's files half out of interest. But he sure didn't expect this. Go Gun Hui found the youth even more likable after reading more about the kid. There is something you should know, sir. The truth is, I received word not too long ago that Hunter Xiang Jinwoo has entered a raid team earlier today. Already? Okay, so whose team are we talking about here? It's the raid team from the Hunters Guild. Hunters, is it? Xiang Jinwoo had chosen the Hunters. Not only that, in one day, too. Go Gun Hui's expression hardened. Could he have been just all talk, and he got tempted by the massive contract signing fee of the Hunters? If so, what a disappointing turn of events this was. Well, he was feeling genuinely moved for the first time in a long while after meeting a hunter worthy of that job title. However, when thinking back to the attitude the youth carried from yesterday's meeting, as well as the information Go Gun Hui had read just now, Xiang Jinwoo definitely did not look like someone who'd change his mind with a flip of his hand. There must be some other reason, such as, for sure, if he wished to combat truly powerful monsters, then the Hunters Guild should suit him the best. Go Gun Hui was ready to accept this explanation. Too bad, because Wu Jinqiao quickly tackled him off that thought process. It doesn't sound like that's the case, sir. Have you heard of something? It has been confirmed that Hunter Xiang Jinwoo didn't join with the main raid team, but actually with the mining team instead. Sir, Go Gun Hui shot up from his chair. What did you say? A rank S hunter applied to become a miner. His voice accurately conveyed his disbelief. In all honesty, Wu Jinqiao reacted the same back then. That was why he confirmed it several times to make sure, but the result didn't change no matter what. That's why I hesitated about telling him about this matter. Just what was Xiang Jinwoo thinking? Cold sweat trickled down Wu Jinqiao's face as he spoke. Yes, sir. He has indeed done so. Go-Gun Huey plopped down on the chair and began chuckling in helplessness. What a hard-to-understand young man he is. Suddenly, the front of the gate became rather noisy. The raid team has come out. Looks like they are finally finished. The tired expressions of the hunters and the mining team, restless from all that waiting, brightened one by one. The Hunters Guild employees stood in front of the gate and welcomed the raid team members as they made their exit one by one. The term raid team as used in the field seemed to refer to the members belonging to the guild's main assault force. So, these people are the country's best assault force, studying the faces of each and every upper rank, no, the very highest ranked, hunters walking by. Jin Woo's eyes sharpened considerably. He spotted a familiar face among them, Choi Jong-in, the leader of the Hunters Guild, and a rank S mage-type hunter. Jin Woo pulled the hard hat lower to hide his face, figuring that things might get complicated if Choi Jong-in recognized him here. Thankfully, there were many hunters wearing a similar get-up as him nearby, so Jin Woo was able to blend in just fine. And so, as he stood amidst the miners and silently studied the members of the country's very best assault force, Jin Woo began thinking that, are they really the true elites of the Hunters Guild? He was feeling quite incredulous inwardly. Quite contrary to his initial expectations, it was hard to find a single hunter with a really powerful aura. As befitting of the nickname Ultimate Weapon, Jin Woo could sense an enormous amount of magical energy from Choi Jong-in. But besides that guy, not one was worthy of mention. But, then, no one told him to do so, and there was no sound attracting him, yet Jin Woo's head instinctively swiveled back towards the gate. And then, he gasped out in surprise. How can this be? There was a woman with a short hairstyle relaxedly walking out from the gate. The very first things that caught his attention on her makeup-less face were a pair of large and clear eyes. Next up, her clean and pale skin, as well as her smoothly flowing neckline, also managed to attract his gaze. If there were 100 men, 99 of them would unhesitatingly praise her looks and call it beautiful. However, besides all that, what attracted Jin Woo's attention the most was not her looks but what was inside her. The power that was hidden inside her. From that expressionless woman, an incredible amount of magic energy was leaking out non-stop. At a bare minimum, she's on the same level as Choi Jong-in. Or maybe, even more than that. She possessed an aura that easily overwhelmed her surroundings. By the time his shock wore off and cold reasoning succeeded in driving his emotions out of his head, Jin Woo recalled this woman's name. She must be the only female rank S, Cha Hyun, the top-ranked hunter who formed, along with Choi Jong-in, one of the core pillars of the Hunters Guild. I can't think of anyone else. Just how many women possessing such an aura existed in South Korea. Compared to her rarity though, Cha Hyun's face wasn't all that well known. It was because she didn't enjoy being exposed to the cameras. And that was also why Jin Woo saw Cha Hyun's face for the first time today as well. Wait, her face doesn't even look weird like in some rumors, so how come she hates being in front of a camera? Indeed, pretty much all ladies in their early 20s love taking photos. Sure, all those happen to be selfies, but still, perhaps his stare was too direct. Cha Hyun's own gaze began shifting in Jin Woo's direction. Stealth shouldn't be necessary here, right? Jin Woo easily hid his presence. Cha Hyun continued to scan the area Jin Woo used to stand before tilting her head slightly. What was that? I thought I felt a really strong presence just now. Was she mistaken? Initially, she thought that the association president Go-Gun Huey had stopped by at the operations area. However, that powerful presence disappeared completely as if it was a lie. Well, someone as busy as the association president wouldn't come unannounced, now would he? Too bad for her. The cost of her misunderstanding was rather great. Because she was searching after the hint of that strong presence, she had to focus her senses, and that meant the heavy odor several times worse than normal assaulted her nose. Yuck. As usual, Cha Hyun pulled out a handkerchief to cover her nose, and while tottering around somewhat uneasily, escaped from the cordon of hunters. Her perception is better than I thought. Jin Woo let out a sigh of relief while watching Cha Hyun's distancing back. With her exit, all the raid team members had come out of the gate. Having been waiting with bated breath for this moment, the foreman of the mining team B Yun Seok turned around to face his boys. He clapped his hands loudly and spoke up with a bright voice. Well, it's our turn now, so let's all do our best. The unique nature of the job meant that the retrieval team would have to enter first, followed by the mining team. Jin Woo stood in front of the gate. There's a breeze inside this dungeon. Jin Woo raised his head. As soon as stepping inside, he sensed an ominous wind blowing in from the deepest part of the cave-like dungeon. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his back, and at the same time, Jin Woo realized the identity of this mysterious wind. It's no normal wind, is it? No, this was a ripple caused by the magic energy. The powerful magic energy emitted by the boss of this rank A dungeon was physically touching Jin Woo's body, considering that the rank S dungeons were incredibly hard to find, even in the entire world. The owner of this magic energy could very well be the highest leveled monster Jin Woo could realistically meet. It was then, chap, a guy coming inside the dungeon bumped into Jin Woo's shoulder. Aye, come on, man. Walk faster. A man named Lee Seong-gu frowned deeply, the words flying out of his mouth sounding sullen. The interior of the rank A dungeon was huge. There was plenty of space to go around the person in front. However, Lee Seong-gu found this newbie who stood there unmoving not to his liking at all. So, he figured he'd embarrass the kid or something by bumping into his back. But, what the FCK is up with this guy? He's like a DMN concrete pillar. When he ran into the newbie's back, it was him who got bounced away instead. Lee Seong-gu flinched and took a step back. It was as if a dangerous light was emanating from Jin Woo's eyes just then. While being pressurized by an aura that robbed away his breaths, Lee Seong-gu began panicking greatly. Lee Seong-gu stuttered before managing to squeeze his voice out. Well, mistakes happen. His voice sounding unexpectedly meek now, Lee Seong-gu lowered his reddened face and hurriedly walked past Jin Woo. Only after distancing himself far away from the newbie did Lee Seong-gu find some leeway to pat his pounding chest. What the hell was up with those eyes, man? And why was he smiling so creepily like that? The retrieval team that had entered one step earlier than the mining team was already in the middle of their operation. And that would be to drag a corpse of a huge monster outside using the ropes tightly tied around it. 1, 2, 1, 2. The physical strength of the close-quarter combat type hunters was excellent, to begin with, so they didn't require help from specialized tools to smoothly carry out their work. Jin Woo imprinted every step of a high-rank dungeon's conquest into his brain. First of all, the raid team enters before everyone else and eliminates all the monsters found inside, with the exception of the boss. Afterwards, the retrieval team entered to drag out the monster remains, and finally, the mining team entered to extract various minerals embedded in the dungeon's walls. In order to maximize profit, none of these steps could be omitted. Both the mana stones and magic crystals were a given, but the high-ranked monster's body could be utilized in various ways as well, and thus was worth a lot of money. Bones, hides, flesh, etc. Not one part of a high-ranked monster is useless, and that was one of the differences between monsters found in low-ranked dungeons and those from the high-ranked ones. After sweeping away every single thing worth money from a dungeon, they kill the boss and close the gate. Only after going through all 4 stages of this process could one declare that the high-ranked dungeon was perfectly conquered. I heard that all the regular monsters have been killed off, but the boss is still alive, isn't it? That's right. Well, if the boss dies, the gate will close down, after all. His answer implied that, until the retrieval and mining operations were completed, the boss could not be hunted down. What if the boss comes out of the boss room? Well, such a case is almost non-existent, but in that case, everyone remaining inside would be dead meat. Now that would be an obvious result. The raid team exiting from the dungeon would take an extended break until the boss raid. And quite obviously, the hunters in the mining team or the extraction team didn't possess enough power to fight against a boss of a rank at dungeon. However, the commonly accepted belief was that, before the dungeon break occurs, the boss would almost always remain inside the boss room. Perhaps that was why there was no trace of fear on the foreman's expression. But, such a horrifying monster is not too far from us. You aren't even remotely scared. Not at all. The foreman B sounded confident. In the last 3 years I worked for the Hunters Guild. Not once was there an incident similar to that. So, you can rest easy, Mr. Seong. Jin Woo stared at the grinning foreman B lightly tapping him on the shoulder, and couldn't help but find it rather envious. Ignorance is a blessing, isn't it? The ripples of magic energy coming from the boss were powerful enough to shake his body even when standing still. It looked like only Jin Woo could pick up on the boss's aura in this place. Oh, so it starts from here. The foreman B discovered mana stones on the cave walls and smiled brightly. The experienced miners began occupying their natural spots in front of the stones even though no one directed them to do so. They put down their gear and hefted the pickaxes up. Jin Woo too stood towards the end of the cavern wall filled with mana stones. So, am I supposed to just strike down? He grew worried that, were he to use his real strength and strike down, both the mana stones and the pickaxe might shatter into tiny little pieces. He was able to take in the sight of Mok Jin-soo, the supposed veteran of the mining team as referred to by the foreman B. Wow, now that was some skill worthy of the veteran label. Jin Woo observed and learned Mok Jin-soo's postures and breathing patterns, as well as the movements of muscles. And soon, Mok Jin-soo's economical but effective movements were being replayed countless times in Jin Woo's head. I think I get it now. Indeed, he thought he understood it, more or less. Jinwoo lifted his pickaxe up. It was as if he was the mirror image of Mok Jin-soo. Swish, crack, swish, crack. Even if their movements were similar, Jinwoo's strength was on a completely another level from Mok Jin-soo's. Whenever Jinwoo struck the cave walls, larger, more intact mana stones tumbled down in droves. Oi, what's up? Look over there. Yuck, what the hell is up with him? The hunters stopped what they were doing and dazedly stared at Jinwoo. Even Mok Jin-soo's tireless hands came to a stop, too. The supposedly mining virgin Ranky hunter was currently making easy mincemeat out of the mana stone wall with practiced movements. Is he really a Ranky? I confirmed it with his license, obviously. You think I'll let a complete stranger into my team without confirming his hunter license first? Well, then, how do you explain that? Wordlessly observing Jinwoo, the foreman bee nervously swallowed his saliva as excitement dyed his expression. Without a doubt, Mr. Seong is the heaven-sent miner. An alarm went off from Foreman B's wristwatch. He raised his wrist to confirm the time. It was lunch hour already. Everyone, let's take a break and have lunch. Yes, everyone dropped their tools and dusted their hands. While the miners were walking towards the exit in pairs and groups, Jinwoo showed no hint of moving from the spot. Foreman B got closer and asked him, Mr. Seong, aren't you going, too? I'm not feeling all that hungry at the moment. Even then, you should eat something if you plan to continue working in the afternoon. No, I'm fine. I did eat my breakfast a bit later than usual, anyway. Really? Well, nothing I can do about that, then. B was planning to talk about the future together with this young man during the lunch break. But that didn't mean he should forcibly drag the kid away, no. Foreman B ruefully turned around towards the gate's exit. It was at this point that the corners of Jinwoo's lips arched up. Watching the distancing backs of the miners, he formed a deep smile. I can't miss such a wonderful opportunity, right? Finally, he was left all alone. Both the mining team and the retrieval team had left the dungeon. For about 1 hour, he was free to do whatever he wanted, meaning this was the best chance for him to seek out the boss hiding in the deepest part of the dungeon. Jinwoo put the pickaxe down and slowly shifted his gaze to the direction of the boss room. He could still sense the thick aura of the monster. I'll just go and take a quick look. He wasn't thinking of doing anything at all. No, he just wanted to see what the boss looked like. A long stroll later, he finally arrived at the entrance of a huge chamber. It was the boss room. The cavern itself was already pretty huge, but the boss room was even bigger. Was every high-ranking dungeon as huge as this one? Just as he began wondering like that, he discovered the boss and automatically accepted that this dungeon simply had to be this big. If a monster like that gets outside, his eyes spotted the lone humanoid monster standing still at the far end of the boss room. Jinwoo's eyes began gleaming brightly like a young kid who got his hands on a toy he wanted so much as a gift. A giant-type monster. He heard a few things about this type of monster before, but this would be his first time looking at one. Because a giant-type monster's corpse was so huge, it was practically impossible to retrieve it in time, so most people would hardly ever get to see one outside of dungeon breaks. Such a creature was right over there, and that was causing his heart to palpitate faster and faster. That thing's really strong. The hair on his body was standing up. But, for some reason, he didn't think for once that hunting that thing down was impossible for him. The current me can. He'd be more than enough. The moment he thought like this, he reflexively swallowed his saliva. Gulp. Just how much experience points would he earn by hunting that guy down? Even though he was telling himself he shouldn't, both the Baruka's dagger and the Night Killer were summoned into his hands already. More importantly, his expression wasn't of someone stuck in a dilemma, wondering whether he should do something or not. Should I just go ahead and do this thing? A soft but excited grin formed on his lips. However, while Jinwoo stood there deliberating with a smile on his face, a certain woman's incredibly sharp voice flew at him from his behind. What do you think you're doing? Right then, Jinwoo felt his heart crash down to the pit of his stomach. When did she? He was paying too much attention to the boss and failed to notice that someone had come closer. I'm busted. Jinwoo could only smack his lips in regret. However, with an eyewitness around, it was no longer possible to stare avariciously at the boss. The Hunters Guild had purchased the raid permit for his particular dungeon, so naturally, the boss of this place was also a part of their investment. And, if the boss was killed off, the gate would close down. The potential losses the Hunters Guild might incur would be a lot, then. I nearly messed up. He got blinded by the desire to level up and nearly put his hands on someone else's property. Jinwoo regained his bearings and spat out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, the owner of the voice had walked closer. I asked you what you were doing. Jinwoo formed an embarrassed smile and turned around to face her. I got lost and ended up here. You got lost? She sounded flabbergasted. Only then did Jinwoo confirm who the owner of the voice was. Huh? Isn't she? He saw that face just before entering the dungeon, didn't he? It was none other than the rank S hunter Cha Hyun. As Cha Hyun slowly closed the distance, she carefully scanned both of Jinwoo's hands. I definitely saw him holding weapons just now, though. Was she mistaken? Whatever the case might have been, they had disappeared without a trace. Cha Hyun's gaze scanned the entirety of Jinwoo up and down. A hard hat and a worker's overall. Is he from our mining team? She honestly believed him about getting lost here. She didn't know how he got this far, but well, the boss room was a very dangerous place to hang around. Discovering the reason was secondary. For now, Cha Hyun figured that the priority should be on helping this man to leave this place. That chamber is where the boss is. Cha Hyun covered her nose with her handkerchief as usual and stood before Jinwoo. Please exit from the dungeon as soon as possible. If you manage to attract its aggro, people inside this dungeon could all die. I'm sorry. It seemed that his acting worked. Jinwoo formed a satisfied expression and walked past Cha Hyun. It was then. Cha Hyun's head snapped towards Jinwoo. Something impossible just happened. Cha Hyun's eyes opened wide, and even before she realized it, she was calling out to him. Excuse me. Wait. Yes? Can you take a look at me for a sec? What's gotten into her? And they said that thieves knew what they did wrong. Jinwoo was not looking forward to Cha Hyun coming in close to him. Too bad. She was already standing right in front of his nose. What's the matter? He asked with a troubled look on his face, but she didn't answer and simply proceeded to lightly breathe in the air near him. She had already put away the handkerchief covering her nose. What's going on here? Jinwoo failed to understand why she was doing this. Wait, why is she suddenly smelling me? However, the state of confusion Cha Hyun was going through at the moment was several times greater than his. There is no stink coming from him. This would be her first time meeting another hunter that didn't stink. Cha Hyun's surprised eyes stared at Jinwoo, and a question mark floated above Jinwoo's head as his reply. Is there some kind of a problem? Are you a hunter for real? Was there a need for words here? Jinwoo pushed forward the hunter license hanging on his neck. Cha Hyun took the license and her gaze quickly alternated between Jinwoo's face and the ID photo. Rank E, Seong Jinwoo. Was this because his rank was too low? She could not pick up any type of smell coming from this man named Jinwoo. No, wait. Actually, a pleasant odor was gently wafting out of him instead. Jinwoo sneakily extracted his license out of Cha Hyun's hand. Can I go now? Well, Cha Hyun did call out to Jinwoo, but then realized that she had nothing else to say nor had a reason to keep him here. It's nothing. Please be careful on your way out. This dungeon is rather large, you see. Of course. Jinwoo lightly nodded his head and turned towards the location of the mining operation. His back soon disappeared around the corner of the cavern. However, Cha Hyun's lingering gaze didn't shift away from the path Jinwoo had walked down on. He smelled really nice. Hunters of the mining team were returning to the mining operations area one by one after finishing their lunch. Foreman B was walking with a toothpick stuck in between his teeth. Once he saw Jinwoo appearing from the deeper parts of the dungeon, though, he flinched greatly in shock. Mr. Seong, why are you coming from there? I got lost while searching for the bathroom, actually. How did you find your way back to here? I ran into Cha Hyun Hunter Nim on my way back, so... Cha Hunter Nim was it. She's probably gone to stand guard by the boss room just in case the boss decides to take a stroll. That lady also worries a lot, maybe as much as you, Mr. Seong. Foreman B guffawed vigorously. It seemed that Jinwoo being worried about the boss not too long ago had left a deep impression in his mind. Jinwoo could only smile wryly. The foreman can laugh like this only because he has no idea how terrifying the boss actually is. This was the difference between the hunters doing these sorts of jobs and the hunters working in the assault team. Cha Hyun understood very well how dangerous and scary an existence the monsters could be, so she was just being meticulous in those areas that no one else was paying much attention to. I didn't know there was such a side to her, what with that expressionless face of hers and all. If the boss decided to come out of the boss room, the assault team wouldn't be the ones in danger. No, it would be the workers doing their job, as the raid team would be taking a break outside the dungeon. And she was sacrificing the allure of sweet rest to stand guard in front of the boss room, just for the sake of total strangers. She's an amazing woman. That was Jinwoo's honest impression of Cha Hyun. It was at this point that he suddenly recalled her odd habit. Why was she covering her nose with a handkerchief? Thinking back, she never let go of the handkerchief, not even once, except for their meeting a few moments ago. Hunter Cha can supposedly smell a kind of body odor coming from other hunters, and I hear she finds them pretty horrible. She can smell other hunters. I heard something or other about her special constitutions and stuff. Her special constitutions, he said. Jin Woo also possessed something similar to that, his excellent sense of hearing. Even from his early years, his hearing could be considered better than average, but once he awakened, it developed even further. I heard that she finds it really hard to breathe near other hunters because of the stink. Was that why? Asking me if I was a hunter. Was it because, unlike other hunters, he didn't smell at all? Back in the Red Gate, the leader of the White Phantoms said something similar. Every one of us can hear a certain voice repeating itself in our heads. It tells us to kill humans. However, I can't hear that voice when I'm looking at you. Wasn't this a bit similar in context with what that creature told him? He didn't have the hunter-specific stink, and they couldn't hear the voice telling them to kill him. Because I'm a player, a unique existence who had received the advantages of the system. Just what was this player? The question of his own identity rose up in Jin Woo's head. But he shook his head eventually. This isn't a problem I can figure out now, anyway. Nice work, Mr. Seong. You were really good, you know. After seeing all those mana stones tumbling down, I thought we somehow got ourselves on an excavator or something. Hunters surrounding Jin Woo began praising him one by one. The cold, indifferent eyes before entering the gate were nowhere to be seen now. Jin Woo was also feeling rather pleased with himself. This experience of being a dungeon miner proved to be surprisingly educational, and he also got to achieve the purpose of coming to this rank a dungeon as well. Well, this is a story best told after knocking back a few cold ones, but he hurriedly changed his tactic. I've met quite a few people while doing this job for many years now. Okay, but it's my first time meeting someone like you. You have a natural-born talent to become a miner. I'd normally not say something like this, but don't you want to come and work for me full-time? I will definitely not treat you poorly, you see. This young man named Seong Jin Woo, even though today was his first day as a miner, he managed to outperform the veterans by 3-4 times the amount. If he couldn't hold on to such outstanding talent, wouldn't he be a failure of a foreman? He was even thinking of discussing the matter with the person in charge and have Jin Woo's wages paid separately from others. That was how badly he wanted to reel in this young man. Too bad, Jin Woo remained resolute. Thank you for your kind words, but actually, I'm getting ready for something else at the moment. What about tomorrow, then? Can you come to work tomorrow as well? Tomorrow? Actually, he didn't have anything else planned for tomorrow. The re-evaluation was scheduled for the day after, too. Still, was there a reason for him to take another mining job now? He already got to learn the process of the dungeon conquest, and he even got to witness the rank of boss, too. However, wait a minute. Just as he was opening his mouth to voice his refusal, a new question quickly entered Jin Woo's mind. Does that mean Hunter's Guild will go on another raid tomorrow? That's right, and that one's also a rank A. But is that even possible? They finished the raid today. Normally, a raid team would take about a week off after finishing up a raid. And this raid only started from yesterday afternoon, which meant the elites of the Hunters Guild were raiding this dungeon for 2 days in a row, yesterday and today. And by the time they kill the boss after the retrieval operations finally end, it'd be the early dawn. Naturally, Jin Woo couldn't understand how there would be another raid tomorrow. When Jin Woo displayed a hint of interest, Foreman B also got more enthusiastic. You see, Assault Team B will be stepping forward tomorrow, not Team A. Assault Team B. Could it be that they were thinking of clearing a rank a dungeon with a backup team? And this is precisely the power of the Hunters Guild, you see. I mean, we are probably the only guild in entire South Korea who can conquer rank a dungeons with 2 different teams. Foreman B sounded quite proud, then. From Jin Woo's declaration that he'd come tomorrow, Foreman B felt like he had gained a powerful, trustworthy ally, and he was filled up with lots of confidence. Mr. Seong, you made the right choice. Foreman B's mustache quivered as he formed a blindingly brilliant smile. And then, to make sure that Jin Woo's mind wouldn't change overnight, he even came up with an unprecedented offer, too. I'll have a good chat with the person in charge, and make sure that you get double the normal daily wages tomorrow. Will that be okay? Of course. You think I won't be able to do that much for you, Mr. Seong? Foreman B confidently pounded on his chest. Late at night, Cha Hyun was tossing and turning in her bed. Why is he different from others? Occupied by various thoughts regarding the man she met back in the boss room, she couldn't fall asleep at all. After awakening her abilities roughly 2 years ago, she ran into many hunters, but there had never been an exception. Whenever she approached hunters, or to be more specific, the awakened, a deeply unpleasant stink assaulted her nose. At first, she thought she was sick, so she went to see various doctors. However, she made no progress in that regard. One of the doctors she went to see cautiously told her of his hypothesis. Could it be possible that you, Cha Hunter Nim, can sense others' magic energy through your olfactory senses? That guess certainly held some merit. The stink would get worse the higher the rank of a hunter was. And sure enough, the lower the rank, the more tolerable the stink was, too. Of course, regular people didn't emit any stink whatsoever. However, this is the first time meeting someone with a pleasant smell. Recalling the events of earlier, her heart began beating a bit faster. She became quite curious who that man could be. She then ended up calling the phone number of Jo Myung-kai, the manager of the recruitment department. She didn't even mean to do that, though. What's going on? Cha Hunter Nim, did something happen at this late hour? It was already well past 1 a.m. by the time she called him. He wouldn't have answered the phone if it wasn't from South Korea's sole female rank S hunter, who also happened to be the vice chairman of the Hunters Guild. She couldn't help but think that she made a mistake after hearing the still sleepy voice of Jo Myung-kai. But that lasted only for a short while. Cha Hyun opened her mouth with some difficulty. Can you find some information on a hunter named Seong Jin-woo? I beg your pardon. Wait, are you talking about the ranky hunter currently working for the association? Cha Hyun was taken in by a huge surprise. Jo Myung-kai was none other than the man in charge of recruiting in South Korea's best guild. So, why did a man like that remember the name of a ranky hunter? Do you know who he is? The thing is, actually, Chairman Choi has requested me yesterday to do the same thing as you have, you see. He asked me to uncover more information on that person. Chairman did that. Yes, miss. Do you know what's going on? Well, even I don't. So, what did you find out? A voice that was thick with a helpless sigh came out of the phone's speaker. I did my best to uncover more, but the association has placed a lockdown on his information. It's my first time encountering a situation like this, them blocking the flow of all information on a regular hunter. He's not even a top-ranked hunter either. But why are you looking for him, Cha Hunter Nim? Is there something I should assist you with? No, it's fine. And sorry for calling you so late. Good night. Those were the contents of the phone call she made 3 hours ago. She worked up her courage to find out more about a guy, only for more questions to bubble up in her mind. A mystery hunter whose identity was being sought after by the leader of the Hunters Guild, while the association was doing their best to hide it. There's definitely something going on here. No, wait. There simply had to be something. She earnestly prayed for it. He could very well be the person to unravel the mysterious and special constitution that continued to torment her ever since she turned 21, 2 years ago, when she had awakened her powers. That man, can I meet him again? Could it be that she'd never get to see him again? She was beset with worry all of a sudden. Thankfully, Cha Hyun recalled Seong Jin-woo's hard hat. She remembered that the hard hat and the overall he was wearing both spotted the emblem of the Hunters Guild. I remember now. He was in the mining team, wasn't he? Unlike her, who was the part of the raid team A, the mining team would be working later today as well. If Seong Jin-woo hadn't left the mining team, then there was a chance that she could meet him again, even before the morning sun rose up. Jin-woo left for the meeting area first thing in the morning. It was different from yesterday, when he had some leeway, as he only joined the crew during the middle of the raid. Maybe I shouldn't have worried. He was worried about whether he was too early or not, but... Hey, Mr. Seong. Foreman B. Yun-seok greeted him first. Hey, it's Mr. Seong. Hey, man. This is a bit awkward. Jin-woo had been subjected to poor treatment ever since becoming a ranky hunter, so when he received such a warm welcome, he couldn't help be dazed somewhat. Still, he didn't feel bad about their honest reactions. Excuse me, Foreman B. Foreman B flinched and shuddered grandly from the voice suddenly coming from his side. Moving around without revealing one's presence was clear evidence of one's excellent skills. And as expected, the one Foreman B's resentful gaze was directed to was the leader of today's raid team, Son Kai-hoon. The thing is, our team's porter decided to not show up today. Looks like I'll have to borrow someone from the mining team. Foreman B's eyes went round in surprise. But why from my team? When you got the retrieval team with lots of strong people who can carry luggage better than us. As if he was waiting for that reply, the foreman of the retrieval team flew off his handle. My boys had to work overtime for 3 more hours just to finish our operation. They even missed dinner, too. But now, you want to use them as a porter, too. The reason why the retrieval team had to put in overtime while missing supper, because the mining team had finished their operation far too early. Well, it's true that we finished our operation, which should have normally ended around 7 in the evening. By around 5 o'clock, all thanks to Mr. Seong. When the foreman of the retrieval team glared daggers with veins popping up in his neck, Foreman B forgot what he wanted to say. Perhaps he thought that this would be enough of an explanation. Son Kai-hoon then addressed the miners. Is there anyone among you who wish to accompany the raid team? Once the raid is over, we will furnish you the additional hazard pay immediately. So Kai-hoon's pleading eyes darted from here to there, but no one stepped forward. Either they looked down on the ground or stared at the heavens, deliberately avoiding meeting his gaze. That would be obvious, really. I ain't gonna risk my neck for a couple more bucks. Won't do it, even if you beat me up. The highest ranked hunter among the mining team was only a rank C. Most of them were rank DS. Heck, they even had a rank E among them, too. However, the place Son Kai-hoon wanted to take them to was a rank A dungeon, seen as perhaps the most dangerous of the lot, realistically speaking. The miners would still hesitate greatly even if the dungeon in question was rated B, yet it was an A. Even a gentle graze would kill these hunters in there. No, just stepping on the wrong spot would result in one's death. That dungeon was not a place where low-ranked hunters could survive. Sure, porters only had to lug around the raid team's gear, but still, compared to the job of mining, it was still far too dangerous. Is there no one? Son Kai-hoon's expression became more and more crestfallen. Who knew how much more time and effort he needed to waste in order to find another porter? Probably the whole morning, or even till the afternoon. Or, if he was really unlucky, then the entire day might go down the drain. This is going to be big trouble. It was at this point when his eyes met with a certain young hunter's. Unlike other hunters, this guy was staring right back at him. It was, of course, Jin-woo. While Son Kai-hoon was staring at him, Jin-woo too was slowly scanning that man's appearance. Isn't he a bit sharp for a tanker? Common sense dictated that the leaders of raid teams were tankers most of the time. Compared to other tankers, though, Son Kai-hoon was a bit on the lankier side. He was also quite tall, so, rather than a hunter, he looked more like a basketball player more than anything else. When Jin-woo took a step forward, he became the center of the attention. I'll do it. A rank E hunter wanted to enter an uncleared rank A dungeon. Pure pandemonium broke out. Upper rank monsters are waiting with bated breath inside, yet you wanna go in. Mr. Seong, what do you think you're doing? You still have a whole life ahead of you, so why are you risking it all for a measly few extra bucks? The members of the mining team surrounded Jin-woo in no time. That friend only started this job yesterday, so he probably raised his hand not knowing anything. What's his rank? His rank is too low, so how about going with someone else? It'll be far too dangerous to take that friend along with you. The rank of a porter isn't all that important, is it? Indeed, a porter only needed to carry luggage around well. If the luggage carrier located at the very back of the raid team found himself in danger, then one should look at that raid as a complete failure. In a case like that, not even a rank A could guarantee his survival, so would it really matter if the porter's rank was a C or an E? They'd die regardless, anyway. I'm taking him. Isn't it heavy? Son Kai-hoon asked a question, and Jin-woo simply shook his head. No, it's fine. The large bag being carried on Jin-woo's back was filled to the brim with extra sets of clothing, weapons, and defensive equipment, etc. For the raid team, its volume was quite considerable, but honestly speaking, he didn't find it heavy at all. All thanks to his strength stat, of course. Doesn't look like he's straining himself. After studying Jin-woo's expression for a bit, Son Kai-hoon turned towards the gate. A giant gate, as big as the one from yesterday, silently floated in the air. Wait, maybe this one's a little bit bigger. Even then, the detected amount of magic energy was supposedly less than yesterday's gate. The raid difficulty was judged by the emitted magic energy and not the size of the gate. That was probably the main reason why the B team was tasked with clearing this particular dungeon. The leaking magic energy is incomparably smaller than yesterday. Jin-woo could tell by standing in front of the gate. The result of the association's measurement didn't seem to be wrong. But then, what was this? Just like back when he was standing before the red gate, a certain creeping sense of ill omen was dawning on him. I hope it's nothing. Meanwhile, Son Kai-hoon gave out his order. Let's go inside. The raid team waiting in front of the gate began moving once more with that order. Hunters entered the dungeon one by one. Jin-woo stopped staring at the gate and followed them in. The interior of the dungeon was rather plain. Jin-woo had been tense after picking up on that odd feeling, but he let off a sigh of relief after seeing the passage that was noticeably smaller than yesterday's dungeon. Phew, thankfully, he wasn't forcibly transported to another world. The thing was, though, the members of this team were plenty good enough to clear a red gate, were they to step into one. 11 rank S, and 6 rank BS. If it weren't the Hunters Guild but somebody else, these guys wouldn't have been assigned to a B team at all. Jinwoo smirked softly. I'm not here as a part of the raid team anyway. Let's not sweat over stuff like this. Yesterday and today. If you were being honest, he only came here to have fun. You don't have to be that nervous, you know. A female hunter, a healer, engaged him in conversation from his side. Was her age around the late 20s or so? Because his expression was stiff, it seemed that she just wanted to help alleviate some of his tension. You see, every single member present here, not just Kai-hoon Appa, the leader of the team, is a distinguished hunter. Except me, that is. The healer lady smiled refreshingly. From the word go, Jinwoo wasn't scared, but after seeing the female hunter's utterly relaxed face, he felt like a deflated balloon. Jinwoo grinned too, and nodded his head. Okay. The healer formed a content expression, evidently satisfied by her efforts. At the same time, the leader confirmed that there were no monsters near the entrance and gave the signal to advance. Let's move. It was then Jinwoo's steps came to a halt. A beat later, the hunters of the raid team also sensed the change in the surroundings. They are coming. Even before Son Kai-hoon finished giving his order, the hunters of the raid team got into their battle formation. It happened literally in the blink of an eye. Jinwoo was inwardly impressed by that. So, this is how the high-ranked hunters raid. They were definitely a world apart compared to the ragtag raid teams he was used to until now. Beasts, canines, Son Kai-hoon's eyes narrowed to a slit. A group of monsters resembling hyenas was rushing towards the raid team. They were as big as a medium-sized car, too. Son Kai-hoon tilted his head slightly. Dungeon jackals. He became sure of it once they got close enough. They were indeed dungeon jackals. Son Kai-hoon had been standing with his shield covering his front. But then, he relaxed a bit and didn't even bother to activate his aggro-attracting skill. And then, he simply used his shield to batter down the dungeon jackal aiming for his neck. What's this? Aren't they dungeon jackals? Other team members, deeply tense until then, began tilting their heads and straightened their hunched stances. Soon, the short death throes of the dungeon jackals filled the cavern's interior. The jackal monsters were quickly taken care of. Over a dozen dungeon jackals were turned into corpses in the blink of an eye. Hunters dusted their hands, still confused by what happened. But why are the monsters from rank C dungeons appearing here? Son Kai-hoon scanned his surroundings, looking somewhat dumbfounded. Everyone else was forming similar facial expressions. With the exception of one person, only Jinwoo was staring at the dead jackals with a grave expression on his face. They are no normal jackals. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. He could definitely see that the fur around the jackal's neck had been flattened down by something until recently. It was clear evidence of them being tied to something, somewhere. Meaning, the ones that reared these monsters are somewhere else inside this dungeon. Monsters with intellect, in other words. Jinwoo recalled the white phantoms he met back inside the red gate. It was now a well-established fact that, regardless of what species it was, intelligent monsters were quite difficult to deal with. Somehow, my premonition might be right after all. It was not a good omen, by any stretch of the imagination. From the deeper parts of the cave, he could hear the matched footsteps getting closer. The real enemies are coming. Jinwoo stood back up. Other hunters also belatedly realized something was wrong. Oh my god. Get ready for battle. Son Kai-hoon forcibly squeezed his voice out. Finally, the real enemies revealed themselves from the darkness of the cave on the far side. The eyes of the hunters grew wide from shock. High orcs. What the hell? Why high orcs? Many well-trained high orc warriors now stood in rows before the hunters' eyes. Their number was 22. Not just any high orcs, but they were 22 high orc warriors, which meant they would be very difficult opponents to fight. Something's wrong. Someone muttered softly under his breath. To think, right after the attack of the low-ranked monsters, they now had to battle these high-ranked monsters famed to be the toughest even among the high ranks. The high orcs pointed their lengthy spears at the hunters. Looks like the momentum of the hunters and the high orcs are about even. Jinwoo quickly retreated to a corner, so he could quietly observe the unfolding situation and find the right time to step forward. Towards the attacking high orcs, Son Kai-hoon activated his aggro skill. However, these orcs didn't really fall for his provocation. And soon, high orcs and melee-type hunters engaged in a bitter close-quarters battle. Blood splattered to everywhere and a scream reverberated out. Not too long after that, magic spells fired from the mage-type hunters slammed into the high orcs. The heads of the high orcs exploded after getting struck by the arrows of brilliant light. Unfortunately, there was no follow-up attack. The effects of magic spells were good, but there was the distinct disadvantage of the lengthy casting time. In a close-quarters battle, high orcs definitely held the upper hand. Heal, heal, hurry. The wounded appeared pretty quickly, and healers were kept very busy. Healer Nim, the female healer, was also kept very busy, running here and there non-stop. I'm coming. The female healer knelt down next to a heavily groaning hunter with a missing arm. She then quickly began chanting. And then, along with blinding light, the lost arm slowly grew back. That was the light of regeneration only the healers ranked or above could perform. Just as she concentrated on the injuries of her patient, a tall shadow suddenly loomed over her. The female healer raised her head. A high orc, previously assumed dead, was holding an axe while breathing heavily right beside her. The female healer's face was drained of all color. Then, unfortunately, there was no one who could save her nearby. When the orc raised its axe up high, the female healer chose to hug her patient and shield him instead. However, she couldn't feel any pain, no matter how long she waited. Each passing second felt like a minute or more. The female healer sheepishly raised her head up, and she got to witness a rather amazing sight. The orc was actually floating in the air, its entire body trembling quite noticeably. But what was happening here? The female healer's eyes opened even wider. But then, snap, the head of the high orc was literally ripped off of its body, and then even the part of its spine got dragged out as well. Now that was a display of terrifying power. Plop. While staring at the headless body of the high orc now on the ground, the female hunter formed a totally confused expression. Because the separated head of the high orc was still floating in the air, that was why. Blood got splashed on my clothes. Jinwoo frowned deeply and threw the head of the high orc. Currently, he was in stealth. Both the high orcs and the hunters couldn't sense his presence at all. Jinwoo had been sitting back quietly, waiting for a right chance to step forward, because he feared being accused of interfering in other people's raid. But then, he belatedly recalled that he had the stealth skill. Wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted without running into problems with that skill? The corners of Jinwoo's lips arched up. Dismantling these high orcs would be too easy at this rate. But if he did that, there was no meaning in hiding himself with stealth. Hunters around him, including Son Kai-hoon, were the elites of the Hunters Guild, often referred to as the best in South Korea. If these high orcs were ripped apart by some unseen force, then they would pretty soon figure out that stealth skill was involved here, as they weren't the same as the scatterbrained female healer. Well, it's not like there'll be trouble from getting discovered, but he was only a day away from the result of his reassignment test being made public, so he didn't want to raise any unnecessary fuss today if he could help it. That was why he was waiting for the raid to fail completely, but the losses to the hunters would be far too severe by then. For example, that female healer almost got killed just now. That was why. A certain light flickered in Jinwoo's eyes. So, choose only those that won't get me noticed. He decided to go with this type of method. First of all, that one. Jinwoo moved. He crouched, and the reverse grip dagger drew a line on the Achilles heel of a high orc. The high orc warrior roared out in pain as the back of its ankle was sliced open without a warning. That was only the beginning. As if he was dancing, his smooth, unbroken movements led him to stab the Baruka's dagger into the side of his first victim. He then pulled the dagger out and proceeded to cut open the back of the knee of another high orc. That was enough. Just like how the opening of the sluice gate caused a flood, Son Kai-hoon seized upon the opening created by the high orc's fluster to start his counteroffensive. Son Kai-hoon raised his head. The long sword held out in his hands was piercing through the heart of the high orc. Thud. Son Kai-hoon clenched his fist. Yes, I can do this. Just as Son Kai-hoon was crying out inwardly in elation while still cutting down the surrounding high orcs one by one, Jinwoo was making himself busy by going here and there. Whenever Jinwoo brushed past, wounds large and small appeared on the bodies of the high orcs. For some reason, it's easier to fight now. What's going on? Could we be winning against this many high orcs without a casualty? Even though members of the raid team were growing rather suspicious, hope and excitement were filling up their hearts at the same time. They were resolved to lose one or two of their own before they had entered the battle, but exceeding their own expectations. They were fighting quite well until now. Pow! A mace swung by one of the hunters cracked open the head of a high orc warrior. It was then Jinwoo got to hear a rather welcoming message. Oh, indeed, there was a reward for him going around and spending his energy. His level had actually gone up. It seemed that him not actually killing the enemy outright or wounding them critically still netted him some experience points. And I did kill 2 of them with my own hands, too. He then aided in killing more than 13. Unless he was earning no experience points whatsoever, his level rising up did make sense. Even more excited than before, Jinwoo's movement became a lot faster than before. Thanks to Jin Woo's timely and sneaky maneuvers, this battle was rapidly coming to a close. Jin Woo took a step back and stored his 2 daggers in his inventory. Just before everyone could revel in the sensation of victory, their leader Son Kai-hoon confirmed the status of the injured first. Anyone hurt? Does anyone need healing? The truth was, there wouldn't be that many injured in a raid team with a high-ranking healer as one of the members. As long as that person was still breathing, any exterior wounds could be treated right away. So, Son Kai-hoon wasn't asking about the conditions of the potential injured. No, he was actually asking if anyone had died in a roundabout way. When his gaze met the female healers, she shook her head. There were a few injured, but no deceased. And better yet, she had finished healing all of the injured just now. In that case, with that, ecstasy filled the faces of the members of the raid team. We won. We did it. Hunters hugged each other and celebrated. Jin Woo crossed his arms and with a gentle smile on his face, watched the jubilant hunters. Excuse me, Kai-hoon Oppa. Yeah, when you were fighting against the high orcs, the female healer cautiously described what she saw in minute detail. And that would be, the high orc suddenly floated up in the air and proceeded to rip its own head off before killing another orc with its severed head. She carried a dead serious face, too. Son Kai-hoon was left utterly speechless. I'm telling you the truth. As the female healer and her reddened face protested the injustice of it all, Jin Woo could barely suppress his giggles. They basked in the aftermaths of victory for only a little bit longer. The hunters soon gathered around their leader Son Kai-hoon one by one. Captain, will we continue on? Isn't this going to be too dangerous? We aren't even that far from the entrance, yet we ran into a whole bunch of high orcs already. How about a strategic retreat? Son Kai-hoon cast his gaze over to the deeper part of the cave, his mouth closed tight. It won't be easy. Jin Woo could sympathize with Son Kai-hoon a little bit here. While working for the Hunters Guild that boasted 2 rank S hunters in its ranks, today's raid might be the one and only time Son Kai-hoon would get to lead a raid team. And to think, he'd have to retreat so quickly in his very first hunt as a leader. Anyone in his shoes would be tempted to push forward and clear this place. However, if you were a smart, wise leader, then, as if he had made his mind up, Son Kai-hoon's lips quivered slightly. Jin Woo's eyes narrowed to a slit. Fortunately, as it turned out, Son Kai-hoon wasn't a fool. For the time being, let's retreat. The leader's choice was absolute inside the dungeon. The unspoken rule said that as long as one was a part of the raid team, one had to absolutely follow the commands of the leader. One used to say that. Before in war, insubordinate soldiers were executed right away, didn't they? In a certain way, dungeons were a far more dangerous place than any war zone out there. And so, the question of the team's survival or annihilation depended on who the leader was. Thankfully, Son Kai-hoon didn't disappoint his team members. After hearing his order to retreat, everyone lightly patted their chests. I was really worried that Son Hyung would insist on going till the end, you know. Son Kai-hoon grinned and slapped the person who said that on the shoulder. I'm not a blind idiot like that. I know that. But, look here, Hyung. Look at my shaking hands. Jin Woo picked up the luggage and placed it on his back. Along with Son Kai-hoon's orders, the raid team began moving again, although their direction had reversed. Jin Woo smiled wryly, and here I am, hoping to go in a little bit deeper. Regardless of what happened, he was nothing more than a guest. And as a guest, he had no right to run his mouth on this and that about the decision of the house owner, now did he? It was indeed a bit regretful, but it'd have to end here today. Everyone, stop. There was confusion evident in his voice. The fatigued hunters walking cautiously forward came to a stop, and so did Jin Woo as well. He had been keeping an eye towards the rear in case the monsters decided to chase after them. What the hell is the meaning of this? What is going on? Why is the path blocked? Wasn't it fine when we entered earlier? Jin Woo walked past the noisy hunters and got to the front before reaching out with his hand. And his eyes widened as well. It's been blocked off. The path had been blocked off by an invisible barrier. He immediately recalled the instant dungeons. More specifically, the wall that demarcated the border between the instant dungeon and reality. But he soon shook his head. No, this is different from that. He could detect a certain sense of artificiality from this invisible wall, seeing that there was a trace of magic energy mixed in. This barrier must have been the result of a magic spell cast by a monster with high intelligence. But why? Why block the path going out and not going in? It was then, as if it was waiting for this moment, horrendously powerful magic energy waves crashed into the group like a tsunami from the far end of the cavern. How could this be? This was from the boss of this dungeon. What the hell? Why am I getting goosebumps all of a sudden? Watching the complexions of the hunters get paler by the second, Jin Woo came up with a theory. If, let's say that there is a boss that can hide its presence, then the wall that wasn't there when they entered, and the boss that bared its fangs only after the barrier had been erected. No way did it lay a trap and wait for hunters to enter the dungeon. From beyond the darkness of the dungeon's interior, the countless sounds of footsteps, far greater than before, reverberated loudly. The countless marching high orcs came to a halt just a little bit of distance away from the hunters. High orcs growled as if they'd pounce at any given moment. No words could adequately describe the bloodthirsty aura emitted from over 50 high orc warriors. The result of a battle was pretty obvious even without actually fighting them. This is crazy. How can this nonsensical crap be? Hunters spat out long groans. They continued to retreat ever so slightly after feeling the enormous pressure, but too bad, their path was still blocked off. So, what would they do now? God damn it. If only either Chairman Choi Jong-un or Hunter Cha Hee-in were here. Son Kai-hoon's expression crumpled unsightly. Rank S hunters all possessed incredible powers that could overturn any unfavorable situation. If either one of those two were here, these high orcs would have been nothing at all. Just why, in a situation like this, why weren't they here? Son Kai-hoon had fought alongside them all the time, so he could acutely sense his powerlessness right about now. Fighting here will definitely result in our death. However, with their path of retreat blocked off, he no longer had any choice in the matter. The creature's voice sure sounded loud. The glare of the high orc was fixed to the leader of the raid team, Son Kai-hoon. What the hell is that thing trying to talk to us? What is it saying? It was then the facial muscles of the high orc began trembling. When that strange tremor subsided, a completely different voice from before came out from the monster's mouth. Humans. It was as if something else had borrowed the monster's mouth to speak. Oh, humans. When looking at closer, that normal-looking orc's eyes were now unfocused and blurry like those of a dead fish that died a long time ago. Hunters began freaking out as if the back of their heads were smacked out of nowhere. An orc just spoke a language of humans. How can an orc speak Korean? Is this magic? Could it be? Hunters couldn't keep their mouths shut at this utterly unexpected situation. The leader high orc continued to speak. I am Karu Galgan. I want to meet humans. Follow this one. A monster wished to speak to humans. There never had been any reports of such a case before. Facing this unprecedented event, not only Son Kai-hoon but everyone in the raid team fell into a state of pure confusion. Kai-hoon Hyun, I hope you ain't listening to the words of a monster. Please, you gotta ignore it. Kai-hoon, it's a trap. Regardless what happens, we gotta try to finish it here. Son Kai-hoon maintained his silence for a while, before answering the monster's words. Did you block the cavern? That's right, I am the proud High Shaman of the orcs. My spells can't be broken by the strength of humans. Is there anyone stronger than you inside this cave? Who dares to oppose me? An incredibly loud roar exploded out from the high orc and slammed into the eardrums of the hunters. When Son Kai-hoon's answer didn't come right away, the leader high orc raised its large axe above its head. Now choose. Die here, at the hands of my soldiers, or follow my soldiers. Will follow. Son Kai-hoon's immediate answer prompted the eyes of the hunters to grow wider. Kai-hoon Hyung. Mr. Kai-hoon. Son Kai-hoon interrupted his comrades trying to dissuade him and waited for the reaction of the high orc. Then, come, human. With the end of those words, the blurred eyes of the leader high orc regained its original clarity. And that would be wild beast-like glare of bloodlust. Son Kai-hoon was the first to start walking, and the hesitant hunters began to follow after him one after the other. What is he thinking? Jin Woo stared with a puzzled expression on his face. Is he trying to negotiate with the boss in order to get out of here alive? Although the odds of that succeeding was extremely low. No, maybe this was for the better. Jin Woo originally believed that this raid would end with him hunting down a few mob creatures, but now he got himself a chance to meet the boss instead. Hunter Nim. Yes, Jin Woo continued looking at the front while answering him. Son Kai-hoon, too, continued to stare at the backs of the high orcs walking further up ahead. As soon as we meet the boss, we're going to attack right away. When that happens, regardless of whether our attack was successful or not, the Beastars should not be able to maintain the magic spell blocking the exit. That made a certain amount of sense. Unless it was some kind of hex-type magic, one had to keep one's focus in order to maintain a spell. Especially if one wanted to maintain high-class magic. An incredible mental focus was a necessity. However, what about it? Didn't matter whether they succeed in killing the boss or manage to cancel the magic blocking the exit. They would still meet a dog's death right away inside the boss room after getting surrounded by the countless high orcs anyway. While their attention is on us, Hunter Nim, please escape from the boss room. Once you get out of the dungeon, you must alert the main assault force. By the time the assault team consisting of rank S hunters arrive here, everything would be over for them. Son Kai-hoon was getting ready to die. Are you thinking of dying alongside the boss? Jin-woo sneaked a glance at Son Kai-hoon's expression. His face remained hardened, but there was no wavering in his eyes. Our job isn't to get out of this dungeon alive, but to close the gates. Many people outside are paying us a great deal of money for that purpose. Son Kai-hoon's voice gained more conviction as he spoke. We will do our job according to what we've been training for. However, you're different. There's no reason for you to die here. I hope you can get out of this place alive. One could now hear the unwavering belief in his voice. His words contained his determination. Jin-woo realized that nothing he could say right now would be of any help to Son Kai-hoon. So, he simply nodded his head as his reply. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.